the Nürburgring Nordschleife, one of the most formidable road courses in the world, spanning 13 miles and over 1,000 feet in elevation difference between its lowest and highest point. The ring has been a proving ground for automakers, racing teams, and parts manufacturers worldwide. For decades, car makers and publications have used the ring as a standard to measure speed, performance, and durability. It is here where the lap time becomes an objective and scientific benchmark of overall performance and classification on an international and historical scale. Sometimes these benchmarks can make a car renowned or even legendary. And the beautiful thing about this is, no class of car or car maker is excluded from this opportunity. The sport economy vehicle that dominates its class and sets the benchmark becomes just as renowned as a limited run hypercar that has done the same in its own respective category. This aspiration and need for manufacturers to make their mark on the international leaderboard has spawned amazing competition over the years, bringing us enthusiasts some of the most high-performing machines in automotive history. Well, friends, that's what I'll be talking about today. I'm Mark, and welcome to Spec M. I would like to start out by stating that though Nissan and the GT-R are the main focus of this documentary, they are in no way unique nor first or last when it comes to manufacturers cheating Nürburgring lap times. The Nissan case just happened to be one of the most mysterious in recent history, which consequently led to it being pretty well documented. It's also a prime example of how car makers will push the boundaries of terms like volume production car and street legal car to break a lap record. Also, to be clear, when I say lap record, I'm referring to the full Nordschleife lap times, not BTG or bridge to gantry lap time, as BTG lap times are not used for official iPool records. Countless hours and laps are spent collecting data, evaluating telemetry, and literally just torture testing to see what breaks during production car testing. What's called the iPool or industry pool consists of 30 car manufacturers, part suppliers, and associations that rent the track for 18 weeks a year for automotive development and endurance testing. Most of the major manufacturers hold the membership. Manufacturers are not only able to evaluate endurance and durability on the green hill while testing production vehicles, but they're also able to gauge performance via lap times. While the development and testing itself has been quite commonplace and unremarkable, there has been quite a bit of controversy and drama surrounding lap records. Here are just a few notable examples of controversies from recent history. Radical. This is where we get into the murky, clear as mud subject concerning road legal and production Nurburgring Nordschleife records. Radical held the quote road legal record for the SRA LM for over a decade, with Michael Berger setting a blistering lap time of 6 minutes 48.2 seconds in 2009. But as reported by whichcar.com, the Radical is only registrable in the UK after modifications, making it eligible for British single vehicle approval, but not standard full type approval. Honda and the Type R. As recently as last year in 2023, Honda stirred up a bit of controversy with their FL5 Type R. It was implied by the automaker that the lap record was accomplished with the standard model Type R. However, later it was confirmed that the FL5 variant was a Type R S grade, which was 47 kilograms lighter than the normal Type R due to no sat-nav, air conditioning, parking sensors, and lighter forged alloy wheels. A far more hardcore model than the standard Type R, and it's only available to the Euro market. Furthermore, Honda didn't even utilize the Type R's stock Pilot 4S tires. They utilized track-oriented Cup 2s, which reportedly were not even available to customers through Honda. This is a pretty prime example of how manufacturers will mislead enthusiasts just to obtain that lap record headline. It gets worse. To this very day, no automaker has gone farther than Nissan and Nismo at misleading the public about their Nordschleife record than with the 2014 Nismo GT-R. But first, let's review a little Nürburgring lore to help prevent any confusion. You see, this in fact would not be the first time Nissan would be in the middle of a controversy regarding the GT-R's lap time. Back in 2008, the premier year of the R35 GT-R, Nissan had claimed a record of 7 minutes and 29 seconds, beating the lap record of both the 997 GT2 and 911 Turbo. Porsche engineers immediately saw red flags with this lap record. So much so that they purchased their very own US spec GT-R to try to replicate the record set by Nissan, and they were not able to replicate the Nissan claimed 7 minutes and 29 seconds. According to Porsche, they were only able to achieve a best lap of 7 minutes and 54 seconds. Porsche's product chief for the 911, August Ekleitner, stated, "This wonder car with the 7 minute 29 cannot have been a regular series production car. For us, it's not clear how this time is possible. What we can imagine with Nissan is they use other tires such as a semi-slick race style tire and not standard road tires." He would go on to state that the GT-R was a good car and it was very consistent. After getting wind of the situation, Nissan responded accordingly. They stated that the tires used during the GT-R's 7 minute 29 lap record were the standard Dunlop SP Sport 600 DSST CTTs, which in fact were available with the car from the showroom floor. Nissan also put emphasis on the fact that the test lap was driven by former F1 driver Toshio Suzuki. In the end, they went on to duplicate the record in 2009 with the same tires. And the entire lap was recorded by Japanese magazine Best Motoring, further solidifying the GT-R's position on the global Nordschleife leaderboard. In the end, Nissan proved their record and got the final word, savagely stating, "Porsche's inability to match their lap record could be due to lack of driver skill."
What did he say?
There was no definitive reason reported for the lap time discrepancy between Nissan and Porsche. It is worth noting that in some regions the GT-R came with Bridgestone Potenza RE70R tires, which are what were equipped on a US spec GT-R Porsche purchased. A completely different tire than what was found on Nissan's lap record example, the Dunlop SP Sport 600 DSST, but there is no way we can conclude that the Dunlop is that much better of a performer than the Bridgestones. Certainly not 25 seconds better given these tires were in the same performance category. There are just simply too many factors unaccounted for to determine why Porsche's test lap was so much slower than Nissan's. I will mention there were reports of suspicion that Nissan utilized non-standard engine mapping and suspension settings, but this is all speculation. But Nissan's 2013 scandal, the primary focus of this video, will definitely make you think about these speculations. The year is 2013. In Europe, the LaFerrari is introduced to the world, McLaren releases the P1, and Porsche's 918 Spider hits the streets. In the US, the third generation SRT Viper, GTS and TA variants were introduced, and so was the C7 Stingray. Meanwhile, in Japan, during the Tokyo Motor Show, there are two headlining premieres, the Lexus RC350 and the new Nismo GT-R. As a quick reminder, the 2014 Nismo GT-R was a factory-tuned R35 that received subtle upgrades throughout the powertrain and chassis. Horsepower and torque were increased from 550 horsepower and 463 foot-pounds of torque to 600 horsepower and 481 foot-pounds of torque. The Nismo also used bespoke Bilstein Deptronic dampers and upgraded sway bars, improving overall road stiffness. The body featured aerodynamic improvements to the front bumper, engine carriage strake, and rear spoiler. Even more impressive was the increased rigidity of the body shell with the use of adhesive bonding in addition to spot welding, leading to precise suspension response under extreme load, all while the overall weight was reduced by 20 kilograms. Note that these are not all the design features that separate the Nismo from the standard GT-R, but for the sake of time, just a few examples. During this same year in 2013, Porsche would make headlines with the newly premiered 918 Spider. With a lap record of 6 minutes and 57 seconds, the 918 became the fastest ever road car to lap the Green Hill. Well, technically, given that the radical SR8 does not meet the full type road legal approval standards, as mentioned earlier in this video. Porsche's lap time was independently verified and the entire session was recorded and published. Witnessed by Sport Auto magazine, Porsche used the factory stock Michelin Sport Cup tires and the factory weight reduction and aero package available to all customers. Both Ferrari and McLaren claimed their offerings would also break the 7-minute barrier, but neither delivered an official record. That being said, the Porsche 918 became the king of the ring and set the standard for high-performance automakers worldwide. As car and drivers Jim Resnick put it in 2017, and I quote, "This would turn out not only to be an impressive lap, but one that set another record of sorts. It provided more tangible details on verification and car specification than nearly any attempt before or since." That would not be the only lap record in 2013 to make headlines, however. This record claim set internet forums and message boards ablaze and was probably the most controversial lap record claim in recent history. September 30th, 2013. Nissan and Nismo engineers will return to Germany to attempt a new record at the Nordschleife with the 2014 Nismo GT-R. As reported by Nissan themselves, I quote, "Demonstrating Nissan's commitment to the constant refinement and improvement of its iconic performance flagship, the newly upgraded Nissan GT-R has lapped the fearsome Nürburgring Nordschleife circuit in Germany in just 7 minutes, 8.679 seconds. Yes, that's 7 minutes, 0.8 seconds. To put that in perspective, that would be only 10 seconds slower around the ring than a Porsche 918 Spider. This claim would mean that it broke the Apollo Sport record of 7 minutes 11 seconds, a supercar that weighs 1,400 pounds less than the Nismo GT-R and makes 100 more horsepower. Using a more modern example and familiar platform for comparison, this record would even be faster than the 600-pound lighter McLaren 720S. Now that the full spectrum is within view, we can begin to see why this claimed lap record was so controversial starting from its very announcement. The news spread across automotive publications like wildfire, and right behind it followed endless disputes and debates about whether the record was legitimate or not. In general, the Nissan crowd shouted bias and denial against the GT-R's capabilities, it being Nissan, not a Porsche, Ferrari, McLaren, or conversely not a Z06 or Viper ACR, which I might add I completely understand and can't really fault them for. Meanwhile, the doubtful and outright deniers of Nismo's lap record claimed either this was just a marketing ploy or some even provide a hypothesis on how the lap time outright was impossible. Interestingly enough, Nissan's press release would include a statement from CEO at the time, Carlos Ghosn. Now, if you have not heard of Carlos Ghosn, I highly recommend you do a YouTube search and take a dive down the rabbit hole. There's a plethora of news specials and documentaries on the former CEO turned convict. But back to the story. In that original Nissan hot lap press release, Ghosn stated, and I quote, "With this lap time, we can authoritatively say that the 2014 Nissan GT-R Nismo holds the volume production car lap record at Nordschleife, which is the gold standard of high performance achievement." Now make sure to remember this statement, specifically the volume production car record part. Also, then the Nissan press release was a vague vehicle specification data point. It simply stated the GT-R Nismo with quote track options was the tested vehicle, where the specifications of the track options were aero tuning, weight reduction, and suspension tuning. But these were the only details given regarding the entire configuration of the test car. So did the Nismo GT-R truly hold the volume production car record? Were US and Euro fans completely in denial about the capabilities of the Nismo GT-R? Well, at this point, even big name automotive publications like Auto Evolution were stating this was beyond mysterious, on the subject of how it managed to blow almost every other production supercar and even some hypercars out of the water. And then, inevitably, the truth came out. At some point between September 30th and November 23rd of 2013, members from Pistonheads, a prominent automotive news publication and marketplace, actually talked to Nismo engineers who prepared the record car. They asked for details on modifications of the record Nismo GT-R over the standard Nismo GT-R, the time attack car as Nissan refers to it, and I quote, "Had bigger spoilers for more downforce, different dampers and brake pads, bucket seats that contributed to a significant 50-kilogram weight saving, and a new ECU remap. Together, those modifications could count for several seconds around the ring, but perhaps even more significant, the car used to set the time had been tuned specifically for the Nordschleife, as Nismo engineers confessed." End quote. First, before going into how the global community reacted, let's break this down. The 50 kilogram or 110 pound weight savings is quite significant. Again, we can only speculate, but the record car would have saved a minimum of 3 seconds off its lap time at the ring. Obviously, this isn't gospel, but what I found on an old autocross and road racing thread was that on a 2 to 3 minute course, that 100 pounds in a 3,000 pound car equals approximately 1 second. The other major factor is the ECU tuning. It's known to be relatively easy to make 500 wheel horsepower plus with just a tune alone on the base GT-R platform. Let's say conservatively that's 625 to the crank, but the 2014 Nismo has been proven to make up to 550 wheel horsepower stock, or well over 600 at the crank. In all, we really don't know how much more horsepower the hot lap car made or what Nismo bolt-on upgrades may have been equipped with. Now once you throw in the larger aero and tuned suspension dampening, which specifically use softer settings to aid around the bumpy green hell, what you have is a time attack car specifically tuned for the Nurburgring lap record. This is not in fact a volume production car, as the CEO Carlos Ghosn had boasted. This news sent a rift through the community. First, there was a large consensus that simply were not surprised at all. Many were convinced that the lap record was bogus since its very announcement. This news was a bit detrimental to many Nürburgring enthusiasts in general. It illegitimized the ring's lap records. There were those who found the records irrelevant beforehand, but this was the final draw if you were on the fence. The Nismo scandal validated the sentiment that records were useless without an official governing body. Here's a prime example of this from news site Car Throttle, which reported on the lap record stating, "This is another example of just how pointless Nürburgring lap times are as they are completely unregulated. Nissan made bold claims that it broke the lap record for a volume production car. It won't ship engineers to fine-tune your car for the environment in which you'll be honing. So it's not really a volume production car, is it?" Despite Porsche setting the standard for what an independently verified legitimate record should look like, some manufacturers still choose to be outright deceptive, all for the sake of marketing. As Which Cars Cameron Kirby once wrote, "Germany's infamous Nürburgring Nordschleife is irresistible to high-performance vehicle manufacturers, luring them with the prospect of record-breaking times that inject PR opioids straight to its marketing vein of their big budget marketing departments. Manufacturers are pushing the gray area of special engine and suspension tunes and super sticky R-spec rubber that have seen the Nürburgring become a Wild West, ripe for disputes over legitimacy with no official governing body to adjudicate matters. In the end, the Nismo record was never considered official. So this very day in 2024, still no one has been able to independently duplicate the Nismo 7-minute 8-second record. In fact, the fastest official lap record for the R35 overall was the 7:24, conducted in 2009. Independent non-Nissan conducted lap records by publications like Sport Auto and Best Motoring have gotten nowhere close to even the 7-minute 20-second mark. Also, there have been so many record attempts by Nissan themselves, these results are kind of convoluted. While most automakers conduct their testing, report their lap time, and move on, Nissan attempted the lap records for 5 years straight, from 2008 to 2013. The repeated broadcasted lap records by Nissan in a way just made their records less and less relevant, and the illegitimate Nismo lap just tarnished ring records for the entire community. In all, there were just abundantly more negatives than positives. Conclusion. If you're still here, thanks for sticking around. That was a lot to get through. Nothing we talked about here should discredit the GT-R or Nismo GT-R as a capable machine. This really has nothing to do with the GT-R in itself. This has more to do with overzealous project teams and marketing departments ruining what was already good. I personally believe if not a single lap record was reported, it wouldn't have made a difference for Nissan and the GT-R's success, because the GT-R was already an excellent platform. enthusiasts simply would not have cared. To put it bluntly, neither the GT-R nor the Nismo GT-R would have been any less legendary if only the original 7-minute 24-second record was announced. But what Nissan did in the late 2000s and 2010s was base the GT-R's entire identity around its Nürburgring lap record. Consequently, the conspiracy ended up just tainting its identity in the long run, exposing how much they had to change on the platform to achieve a record that can't even be verified. On the topic of Nürburgring lap time relevance, ring records will always be relevant, as it's an objective measurement of speed and performance. Or how JG Pasterjack of Grassroots Motorsports puts it, the overreaching question we try to answer is, how well suited is this car for track use? The ring or any other road course or drag strip is a tool or standard of measurement. Like with any application of the scientific method, you need to know what you're testing and what you're measuring. But if you lie about what you're testing, and you lie about the results, then none of it's relevant, right? Today, an iPool lap time is not considered official unless the data can be verified. Also, an official statement must be provided by the record holder, specifying what road legal tire was used. Raw, uncut footage of the record lap from start to finish must be supplied. From there, it is scrutinized by industry experts, publications, enthusiasts, and the general public. Now, this is not as solid as an official governing body, of course, but we should also give credit where it's due to publications, journalists, and even other car makers for calling out suspicious lap times. Hey, and let's not forget you, the enthusiasts. Thanks again for sticking around and watching this full video. I really appreciate you. It took me about 4 weeks to put this all together, starting from notes on a piece of paper. I really enjoyed the process, and I look forward to creating more content for you guys, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks again. Until next time.